How do you get into voiceover?
You don't. VoiceOver is already filled up. There's no more room whatsoever.
No. Why would you say that?
I'm using reverse psychology.
They literally just hopped on here to see how to get into voiceover. You have questions about voice acting? Well, we're here to help you in a video that we're calling
How to Start a Voice Acting Career, or How to Get into Voice Acting, or How to Become a Voice Actor. We could call it a bunch of things, but it's basically how to get into voiceover. I'm Mike.
And I'm Heidi. We're both VO talent and actors, and we own the Atlanta Voiceover Studio and ProVoiceoverTraining.com. Our goal is to equip, elevate, and inspire you, our voiceover talent.
We built the Atlanta Voiceover Studio and ProVoiceoverTraining.com to help guide you in your voiceover career, a one-stop shop, if you will.
When we first started out, we didn't have a place that we could go that could help us start out from square one. So we created the studio and the sites to make it easy for you to learn, and you don't have to search all over the internet.
Right. Nothing but free advice in this video. We'll share with you what we have to offer later in case you want to utilize our place either in person or live via Zoom or on demand. But until then, let's get into it.
We can't talk about how to get into VO until we, briefly, first explain what is voiceover.
To save time here, we already did a video that goes more in depth on that, but check that out on our channel. But a quick recap.
Voiceover is the voice that you hear on commercials and training videos that you may have had to listen to and watch with your workplace.
And it's animation and video games and a whole lot more. These are all called genres within voiceover.
Commercial.
Animation, like cartoons and anime.
Narration.
Audiobooks.
Promo.
Trailer.
ADR, or automated dialogue replacement and looping.
Video games.
Radio imaging.
IVR, telephony, which are phone prompts, answering machine, stuff like that.
E-learning, instructional and educational.
Announcements, like PA announcements in airports, train depots, etc.
And that list seems to keep growing, but the one thing that you have to remember about voiceover in its various forms is that there is an element of acting in all these genres.
Voiceover is acting. Acting is at the very core of all voiceover genres. Acting has been around for ages, of course. The days of yore. Before there was on-screen acting, though, and the radio was the new tech, you had news, but also storytelling to the masses came into its own.
Families would gather around the old radio at night and listen to programs that would come on at a certain time. Radio dramas became a thing. And with it, radio voices, dare we say voiceover, came into existence.
Now, of course, we're not historians on the birth of voiceover. I'm sure someone else is out there, and you can search that out, but you get the picture.
Since that time, storytelling has become a huge art form. And while dramas like that aren't on the radio as much nowadays, but they have moved over to podcasts and other storytelling venues.
But with voiceover, as we touched on in the What is Voiceover video on our channel, just simply having a good and pleasant voice or impressions or cool or funny character voices
doesn't mean that everything will line up for you to make a go of it in voiceover. And that's just reality.
The biggest commonality between those who make a great full-time living in voiceover is that they've invested in themselves, they've gotten training, and became actors. Basketball coach John Wooden said, "Failing to prepare is preparing to fail."
And this is key in voiceover. Now, you don't need to become an award-winning actor to make it. That's not what we're saying. But the more you can develop that side of your talent, the more tools you'll have in your pocket.
And you can always book work as you go. It just so happens that the more you train, the more you get better, and the bigger and better clients or agents you'll be able to get.
It's all about delivering believable characters or performances. For commercials, can you sound like you're talking to just one person and not just reading copy?
And for animation and video games and dramas, any acting you have to do, it's like Sanford Meisner said, acting is behaving truthfully under imaginary circumstances.
Now, we've all seen bad acting on screen, right? Well, you can also tell bad voice acting, which is why we all train.
Voiceover is a craft to learn, no matter what genre you want to do, and especially if you want to do multiple genres. To start out, and depending on how much time you have to train, we always say pick one, focus on learning that genre.
We usually advise new talent to start off with foundational training, learning how to use their voice and discover all that they can do with it.
Some people who've come through our studio find it relatively easy. Others, Well, it's challenging. Everyone is different.
We have a class called the Beginner VO Intensive, which covers all of this, and we'll mention it later, just in case you're interested.
We'll usually recommend you train in the commercial genre first, and there's a huge reason for that.
Agents will want you to have a commercial background because that's how they make the majority of their money, unless they're an animation agent.
And those are few and far between. Agents who focus solely on animation. Nowadays, the big agents get commercial, animation, video game, e-learning, promo, all the genres.
So the more that you can train and specialize, the better.
The more tools you have in your tool belt, the better. The more fries you have in your
Okay, they get the picture.
Okay.
The point is this is such a fun craft. Never stop training.
Well, take breaks.
Well, yeah, of course, right. But what we mean is that because it's a craft, there's always something to learn, which is really exciting. The subtleties, the trends that change, and a lot more. You'll learn how to recognize it, but it also helps when you learn with others and have a community.
It's so much fun. Get plugged into classes and workshops, take acting or improv classes, get with other voiceover talent on social media sites, do anything you can to improve and hone your skills.
Okay, think you've beaten that drum enough?
Think so.
Okay. Well, let's recap. We quickly covered the genres and sufficiently encouraged you to make training a big part of getting your voiceover business up and running. So what's next?
We get a lot of questions, mostly from actors who seem to think that you have to be in a specific region of the US to have a voiceover career. And that's because they're actually used to looking at it from an acting perspective.
New York City or Los Angeles were the go-to places for big agencies and where the majority of filming would take place. But not anymore. Over the past decade or so, things really started to change.
Even so far back as the mid-90s, when digital audio workstations like Cool Edit Pro were making their way onto the scene, you could send MP3s of your voice. So you could have gotten an agent. I just wasn't that smart back then.
Aw. You done taking that regretful trip down what I should have done lane?
Yes.
Well, like I was saying, it's morphed to where you don't have to be in the big city. Before, live in the big city, go into your agency and audition in front of your agent, then wait to be called back, book the job, and go to a big-time studio to record your gig. And
though some talent figured out how to get their own clients, and that was the way that many did it.
Now, you can get agents from all over the country, including the big cities, audition for them and book jobs no matter where you are, and record everything you need from your own home studio.
And you can also market and get your own clients, searching online, creating lists to keep up with them all, join pay-to-play sites to audition, and you could do it from anywhere in the world.
But since COVID, things really moved to talent needing their own broadcast quality home studio. No one was going into studios.
Our guess is that during the height of it all, 100% were done at home. Ad agencies and studios, especially for animation, were actually shipping equipment to actors' homes for them to record.
Which is crazy when you think about it. And voice talent who already had a home studio set up didn't miss a beat when auditions rolled in and never stopped.
And boy, did they. So all that to say, eventually you'll need a good home studio. Don't stress, only get that when you're ready.
Okay, recap. For voiceover, you can be located anywhere, which is a great thing. Why move to the big city where the cost of living is so much more? You can stay right where you are.
Create a nice little space where you record, get agents, clients, and work. And we know this because even though we're in Atlanta, we have agents in big cities like New York, LA, and Chicago, as well as other cities around the country, and it's not been a problem.
But that leads us to talking about the home studio a little more. You will need to have one eventually.
As you start out, you can actually just practice on your phone. Just open up your voice memo app and record your voice. Let me clarify. We'll always advise you to get training, but for now, we're just talking about getting started.
And to get accustomed to hearing your voice as you speak, put in your earbuds. Or the next step,
get a simple USB microphone which plugs directly into your computer, and you can record on free software like Audacity. We actually have an on-demand class on Audacity at provoiceovertraining.com.
Having everything you need to learn in one class will save you time and money. But when it comes to voiceover, start paying attention to commercials on TV and radio.
For animation, watch cartoons and anime.
Doesn't sound like bad homework, does it?
Doesn't sound like homework.
True.
Whatever genre you may be thinking about, listen to those different areas.
Okay, back to home studios.
Right.
Yeah.
So the USB mic and Audacity, or GarageBand, both free at this point, and you can record yourself to get used to doing it. Now, I don't want us to get in the weeds talking equipment, especially at this point. We have other videos on our channel that do that, and we could spend hours talking which mic, what preamp, yada, yada, yada.
Just know that as you start out, if you want to be competitive, you will eventually need good equipment. We have recommendations on our affiliate page, kit.co/pro voiceover training, to help you out too, if you're at that point.
There we have it set set up so you can look at different price points of equipment. And if you ever have questions, you can always contact us at Atlanta Voiceover Studio on ProVoiceoverTraining.com. Links are in the description box.
To give you a sample of what Mike and I use in our office booths at the Atlanta Voiceover Studio, we each have a double-walled whisper room. Not needed for most people, but we do this every day, so it's worth the expense. I use a Neumann TLM 103 microphone because it sounds good with my voice.
And I use a Sennheiser 416 shotgun mic because it brings out the best in my voice. And both of us use the Universal Audio's Apollo Twin as a preamp. So the mic, and we use Mogami cables because they're very good, go into the Apollo Twin, which then connects into our computers.
And at home, we have a similar setup in a well-acoustically treated space, but only use a Sennheiser.
And for software to record our voice, we use Adobe Audition.
The reason we like Adobe Audition?
Shout out to Adobe Creative Cloud.
What are you doing? They don't sponsor us or anything.
Well, maybe the senior marketing person or CEO will see this and they will.
Okay. All right. You look really creepy right now, so no. No one from Adobe will see it.
You have no faith whatsoever.
Nope, I don't. We use Adobe Audition because it's an awesome program, offers a lot, and because we've used it for years when we were in radio. That setup just works for us, but you choose what works for you.
Adding all that up and not counting the computer, each mic was $1,000 and the Apollo was about $800. So Adobe Audition is running about $269 a year, calculating, tabulating. It's pricey, but when you think about it, if you were to start a small business, you'd be spending way more than that. So while that is a lot of money, the bar is set pretty low, especially if you're just starting out and you don't need to get all this stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, but it's not all about the equipment.
Right.
A lot of it can be about the way your home studio is, what we call treated. You have to have a well-treated space.
Let me reset here. That doesn't mean you have to walk into the room and look at the walls and say, hey, how are you doing?
Oh my gosh.
You're looking good. You don't have to treat the room well.
Okay.
That way.
Yeah, not what we're saying. Treating a space means that you can't just have a room with 4 bare walls. They have to be treated with special items to absorb sound.
How you doing?
Boy.
Think of it like a billiards table. You hit the ball and it bounces off the side of the pool table. Your voice is the same way in a room. Sound frequencies are just gonna bounce off your room like those balls.
So you must have something up there to absorb the frequencies. If you're at home and you put your studio in your closet, well, that's perfect.
How you doing?
Oh boy, how'd I get so lucky?
No, how you doing?
No, okay.
So treating that room, it's inexpensive and your clothing will already soak up a bunch of those reflections. If you see any bare walls, then just stick some pillows or blankets in those areas and it'll work for the time being and until you're ready to invest in more.
But if you do want to spend the money eventually, you can get someone who knows how to build a soundproof studio with floating floors and uneven walls that are padded to absorb all that sound. Or you can lay out some cash for a booth. We each have whisper rooms and they come single-walled, double-walled.
Yeah, plenty of options. But there's also studio bricks, vocal booths, and more. Should you decide to go with a professional booth like that, if you want to get the most out of it, you'll need to appropriately acoustically treat the inside of the booth, and it'll sound way better and not like you're in a box.
We have a home studio treatment course at ProVoiceoverTraining.com that can help you when you get to this point.
Now let's say you're just starting out. You've learned enough to book an audition from one of your pay-to-play sites, or you actually got a client.
But your home studio is only good enough for the audition, and the client needs something more professional sounding.
Meaning they don't want to hear the AC running or landscapers outside.
Don't fret. Just simply call up a studio around where you live, tell them you need a voiceover studio to record a project for a client, and let them know that it's coming out of your pocket and you need to book time. Ask for the talent rate. And if the client is paying, let them know that too, because it's a different rate.
Most likely, you'll be able to find a place to help, but scope out that studio ahead of time so you're not scrambling when the time comes. Write down a few studio names, numbers, and addresses to keep handy.
And you also need to make sure you're getting paid enough from the client to cover that cost, or ask them to cover it. Nowadays, it's becoming customary to expect you to have a home studio, and if not, that you cover the cost if you must book a studio.
In the long run, it'll pay if you just get it out of the way and create a home studio space that you can record out of, if you can afford it. Upgrade as you go if you can't do much in the beginning. Again, creating a great home studio can be easy, but get help.
Bottom line, and I know this might be conflicting advice that we just gave you, but it all really depends.
1, you don't need a home studio right away as you get started, but 2, create it as soon as you're ready. And get the right help from others who have gone before you, like in the courses we have or private coaching. If anyone promises you a demo after only a few training sessions, you should probably run the other direction.
Sure, it'll showcase what you can do at that point, but if you can't reproduce or recreate what you did in that demo session,
It'll work against you.
yeah.